What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? I'm your host, Jill Bennett, and this is the podcast that shares ideas to help you live your best life, because life can be beautiful when you live consciously. Welcome to this week's episode of What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? My name is Jill Bennett and I'm your host, and I am absolutely delighted this week to have with me Holly Hartman. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
I'm
so excited.
Yeah, no, we're really excited to have you here. Now, Holly is an international best-selling author of a book, Recovery After Narcissistic Abuse. She is a life transformation and dating and relationship coach, an international professional speaker and podcaster, and domestic violence advocate. Holly is the founder and CEO of Mindful Missions Global and the Solo Date Challenge, which we'll go into a little bit later. She is the host of two podcasts, the Solo Date Challenge podcast and the Healing Playground. Holly facilitates coaching, both group and one-to-one. She does online workshops and healing retreats. And her main mission is to help people break toxic cycles so generations forwards and backwards may heal and the ripple effect will be felt around the world. Holly is a survivor of CPTSD, abuse, addiction, and codependency. And she teaches tools and skills to empower people to heal and break toxic cycles so they may thrive in all areas of their lives. One of her most important jobs, if not the most important, she is a mum of two exceptional boys. She has over 12 years in recovery, and as an Enneagram 2, her biggest passion and heart's work is helping people. She's an avid hiker and enjoys being out in nature as much as she can. That's her happy place. She loves digital art, photography, vinyl crafting, and being creative. And today we're talking about the art of loving yourself. You're a busy lady.
Yes. But I do everything that brings me joy these days, which is just lovely.
Which is amazing. It's definitely the way to go. I think definitely the way to go. But there are so many people out there and they are their own worst enemy. Why do you think that is, Holly?
Well, if we think about like with the ego, just in general, the ego is there to keep us safe. And it doesn't necessarily want us to thrive. And so we have to circumvent the ego and really step outside of our comfort zone. Right outside of our comfort zone is really where all the blessings come and all the joy and all the love and all the things that really just what make us thrive and love life again. But so many people stop right on the outside of that bubble. And they just don't know how to break through.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? I think so many people are raised to just get a good education, get a good job, don't rock the boat, and they're missing out on so many amazing things in life. Yeah. I know that you help to guide and connect people to their authentic self so that they can really live just an amazing life. How can we do that? Because so many people, they're in this way of life. They may have worked hard, got a good job, but then they feel they're acting almost in the day-to-day. And as you say, they're just staying outside, just inside of that comfort zone. So how can we help people to connect to their authentic self?
I think the biggest first step is self-awareness, and you can achieve self-awareness from lots of different ways. But one of my favorites is discovering your core values. When you actually know what your core values are, those become a compass for all the decisions you get to make. So when you look at your day today, you can go back and reflect. So if you're feeling positive feelings, happy, joyous, free, loving life, you're most likely pinging on all of your core values in a day. Now, if you're feeling anxious, angry, resentment, things of those like negative energies, most likely you are participating or somebody else in your world is going against your core values. So that is a really good compass to try to figure out how to bring joy in your life. But also there's great self-assessments that are online that you can take. The more self-awareness you can have about who you are as a person, not what people told you were, but what you are and who you are, aside from the limiting beliefs that block you, those are ways that you can uncover and then feel confident in moving forward out of that comfort zone.
Yes, but I know when I did an exercise to work out my core values, it's actually quite hard, isn't it?
It can be
It's,
challenging. So I coach
yeah.
people through it and walk them through it and really encourage them to look at it in many different facets. So sometimes working with a professional is helpful for that.
Yeah, I think so. And also to find out what your limiting beliefs are, because
Mm.
I mean, mine were completely buried in my subconscious mind from things that had happened in my childhood. And it took an awful lot of digging to get them out.
Yeah, and that takes time. It's layers. So be gentle with yourself as you're trying to process through. I look at it as like a quarter turn. If you can make a quarter turn change, celebrate that. We're not looking for a 360-degree change because your body probably wouldn't be able to tolerate that. So those quarter turns where you make those little self-awarenesses, celebrate that and try to make a shift and take action. And then do that again the next day and a little bit more and a little bit more. If you do 1% change every day, you're going to have a big impact over a year.
Yeah, that's really a really good idea, actually, to make those tiny little changes. Another way I've heard it said is it's like peeling back the layers of an onion, isn't it, to get to know the changes you need to make. Yeah. Oh, well, shall we have a look at the solo dating? So, yeah, what is solo dating?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell briefly how it came about for me because it's part of my own healing journey. And that I'm one of those people that I want to help people that where I was 2 or 3 years ago, I want to help
Yeah.
them out and uncover. And so I was in the middle of a toxic marriage and that ended. And so my higher power God said, you have to date yourself. And at first it was 100 solo dates. And I'm like, what does that mean? So I started to date myself. I took myself to a restaurant and the movies and all these different things. But I soon realized it was a lifestyle change. It was not just 100 solo dates. It was truly the premise is filling your own cup, bringing joy into your life, and it doesn't matter what that is, but it encapsulates self-care, self-love, self-healing, and solo dating. So it's not just solo dating, it's the intention that you put behind it. So many people say, oh, I go to the movies all the time, or I'll walk around Target and drink coffee and da da da. I'm like, but do you do it with intention? That changes the
Mhm.
energy. When you'd
Yeah.
say, I'm going to do this because I love myself and I honor myself and I'm doing this to make myself happy and I'm doing this because it brings me joy, the energy is different than, and it takes away the guilt because a lot of us feel guilt for taking care of ourselves. We hear the concept of put the oxygen mask on first. So many people hear it, but they don't do it. And this really is the same concept of fill your cup. And when you fill it with this love energy and this joy and this gratitude and all the things that just spark your soul, you will overflow. And that overflow goes to everybody else. And it changes the ripple effect for everybody involved.
That's such a clever idea, isn't it? That it does overflow and it goes to everyone else. Because if you don't look after yourself, I think a lot of us have had that big career with, in my case, I commuted into London and I had 2 young children at home. And you are always at the bottom of the heap when it comes to doing anything nice for yourself. I also had a husband that traveled a lot, so I'd be at home alone with the children. So you're absolutely right. It's so key to look after yourself, do things that bring you joy because you're worth it. You deserve it.
Yeah. And everybody else around you deserves it too, because
Yeah.
the energy is different. You ever hear like when people say, I work so hard, but my family gets the worst of me. Well,
Yeah.
this changes that dynamic where you're actually pouring that energy that they get from you is actually loving. It's actually intentional. It's actually full of joy. And that's really what your family and your friends and the people around you want. But at first, it feels like counterintuitive. It feels like, no, I should put everybody else first. But you show up differently, and then they get to show up themselves. And then you're also modeling healthy behavior.
Yeah. 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 I just love that whole idea. You're absolutely right. So you have something called the Solo Date Challenge.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's a group online that I started, and it's a Facebook group. And right now, there's 1,900 women in it, over 25 countries impacted. I also have a men's group because this is not just for single women. That's what most people think. This is for in the Solo Date Challenge group for women. It's for all women of all ages. It doesn't matter. We all need to learn how to love ourselves. And when you shift that energy, you learn how to validate yourself versus looking. So it keeps you from being in other toxic relationships where you're seeking validation from toxic people. It protects you from that because now you can give that to yourself. But the group itself, we support each other, we celebrate, because there's some people that have never been to a meal by themselves before and they're scared to do that. And so we celebrate them. Or there's somebody that wants to go travel across the globe and we celebrate that. It doesn't matter how big or small. We're going to meet you where you're at. And what we say is we will love you until you learn how to love yourself. And so everybody is welcome there.
That's amazing. The I just had a thought in my head and it's completely gone. Oh yes, I'm a member of a group called the Empty Nesters.
Ooh, nice.
And I find it is so sad that the women in there have got no life once the children have gone. And I'm always trying to put encouraging messages, but now your time's your own. It's time to go out and meet people. But some of them, they just cannot seem to move on. They don't know how to put themselves first and enjoy. They need to be part of the solo date challenge. I'll have to post about it in there. Push them all forward.
We welcome them. And that's what happens is these life experiences that people have, whether it's a divorce or your children moving away or death of a spouse. And we have a lot of people that are in recovery from cancer because a lot of times life happens and then we don't know who we are anymore. And so that's where really, and our group is not a male bashing or bashing of anything. We are in the solution. We are in the healing. We are in the positive uplifting. And I often hear from people from the group that like they've never experienced a group like this that is so encouraging and uplifting. And that's them. That's everybody. That's the collective. And that's what's so beautiful about it.
Yeah. And I think even when a marriage ends or something, if you've got children, just be grateful for what you've got out of that situation, that relationship you were in. Celebrating having beautiful children is just amazing, isn't it? And I think there's always something good that you can take from every situation. Yeah. So we know that the solo dating challenge is for really anybody, male or female. How do people participate?
Yeah. So really what I do encourage people to do is do some of these self-awareness reflection exercises of core values, because I actually have, I encourage people to date their core values, meaning doing the things that bring that into your awareness. So some of the things you mentioned in the intro, I love to hike. So being out freedom is one of my top core values. Growth is another top core value of mine. And so I do a lot of courses and that's my solo date. So what you might envision as a solo date, it may be a little bit different. And at the end, we're going to talk about a freebie that I have that I created a book called The 5 Love Languages of Solo Dating. And so the same concept where if you've heard of the book, The 5 Love Languages, many times it's played out, or at least it was first written on couples. But the reality is a lot of people are single, or maybe their spouse can't give them what they want or need in the form of love. And so how can we pour that back into ourselves? And so that's another way that you can look at solo dating is like, okay, what's my love language? Is it physical touch? Okay, well then I'm going to go get a massage, or I'll go swimming, or I will go play in the sand, things that bring that touch that you can intentionally love yourself. Or maybe it's gifts. Well, then go buy yourself that thing, or buy the course, or do whatever, do it unapologetically, because it is who you are and you get to love yourself in that way.
And so with me, one of my things is acts, people doing things without being asked. And it's not really in a man's psyche, I don't think, to take the trash out without being asked. So I just thought, okay, I'll have a cleaner, I'll have someone come in and help me in the house. And but I'm a hiker, and in Mallorca we've got so many mountains, it's just lovely. I get up and I just take myself out and I go and walk up a mountain or go for a bike ride, and it's just wonderful it's almost like a meditation for me to do those things. It's very fulfilling. Very fulfilling.
Absolutely. And it's where you do the intention. That is the biggest, like, if nobody hears anything else, do this with intention. Do this with the intention of that you're going to love yourself unapologetically, and that it's okay to do this. So many of us, especially here in the States, I'm in Indiana, there's this guilt, I'm assuming across the globe, this guilt of like, oh, I've got to put everybody else first. And even when you go do this act, if you don't do it with intention, you may still feel guilty for doing it. Like, oh, I feel guilty for taking this time. No, you're modeling behavior. You're showing what healthy boundaries are. You're showing what self-care looks like. You're showing them how to not burn out. There is so much goodness in coming in and showing it, because you can tell them all you want, but they're going to watch what you do.
Yeah.
And that's what they're going to do. And so really you're doing yourself a service, and you're doing your family a service, and the people and the friends and the people that are watching you, you're modeling that behavior and saying, it's okay to love yourself. And that's what I do. And it really does change the world. That's my gift to the world, is showing people how to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole guilt thing, I think, is probably more for more women than men. I'm not saying there aren't men that feel guilty, but it is such a big thing for women. When I worked, I got to the stage where I knew I wasn't doing the best I could do at work, and I knew I wasn't being the best parent I could be. And you're really torn between the two, that you have a guilt. If you're at work, you feel guilty. If you're at home, you feel guilty. So it's taken me a long time to get over that. It was a huge learning curve for me, but I've been on a sort of personal development journey for about 10 years now, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah,
Holly,
you have to immerse yourself with all the people that believe that too, because there are
Yes.
so many limiting beliefs. I've been in the personal development world for 17 years. Like, that helps me navigate that. But if you're around a lot of negative people all the time and bringing you down, that might be the self-care act you need to do right now, is to start finding different circles that are helping you, encourage you. And that's where Solo Day Challenge comes from. It's that community of like-minded people that are going to lift you up.
Yeah. And that is so special, having your own cheerleaders and where you can give and take. That's just fabulous. Holly, it all sounds so amazing. Tell us more about the freebie, the download.
Yeah. So have a free ebook. Just try to make it accessible for everybody so you can get it in your hands right away. And I was able to give her the link. And so it is called The 5 Love Languages of Solo Dating. And so what it does is talk about the love languages. So if you're not familiar with that, you'll be informed based off of the book. But then this kind of gives you a breakdown of, I think it was like 10 to 20 ideas of each love language. So you can kind of spark some of those ideas of like, oh, okay, if physical touch is my love language, here are some solo date ideas. If gifts is my love language, here are some solo date ideas. And then I encourage you to journal and find some of your own, but that's just an off point.
Yeah. What we will do is we'll put the link to the freebie and all of your links, Holly, in the show notes. There's so many places that people can check you out on your website. They can book through your website. They can join one of your Facebook groups. And thank you so much for joining us today. That was amazing. And I'm just delighted that I got to meet you.
I love it. Thank you so much. And I appreciate all the people that are listening today, and I look forward to meeting you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to this week's show. Check out all the links to the resources mentioned in today's episode and all my freebies in the show notes. See you next time.